We're in northern New Mexico at the foothills of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. In the 15th and early 16th centuries, conquistadors Juan de Oñate and Don Pedro de Peralta would establish the settlement of Santa Fe here on the remnants and ashes of indigenous Tano, also known as Southern Tewa, Pueblo communities of the Olapogue Owinge area. Since then, New Mexico has experienced rule under Spain, a period of Pueblo resurgence, Spain again, and then Mexico, and eventually the United States. Santa Fe, which started with a few hundred residents, has now experienced the displacement and erasure of most of its indigenous inhabitants. Meanwhile, monetization and consumption of the land, water, and resources have contributed to exponential growth in human population in the city area. It has become a world which would look out of balance to her original stewards. After the last light leaving town headed north on St. Francis Drive, the exit for the 599 bypass connects to it. In these outskirts lie a few of the places which still probably resemble what it might have looked like in the Santa Fe area 500 years ago. The area consists of a mid to old growth pinon juniper forest. The ecosystem has evolved over thousands of years to support hundreds of plant varieties, providing food and shelter for insects, reptiles, animals, and birds. They use this critical habitat like a green bridge to make daily, weekly, and seasonal migrations between the mountains and Rio Grande River. But over the last few decades, the expansion of homes and business sites has made its way into Santa Fe's green belt, which once was a buffer between civilization and still wild places. One new development in this area would affect 255 acres of this woodland. In the traditional belief system of the Diné, the Navajo, we consider Earth and her elements as the Diyin Diné, the holy people. Just a few of them are Nahazan, Mother Earth, Zif-Azan, Mountain Woman, Tuh-Azan, Water Woman, and Chil-Azan, Plant Woman. We are given this opportunity of Ina, life and existence, and in exchange we are to continue Hojo, balance and harmony. Common to the indigenous people of the world, our ways of life evolve from observing the ecology, geography, and natural systems like seasons and celestial patterns. They say our knowledge comes from stories given to us from the holy people, passed to us through hundreds of generations of ancestors. In Diné, juniper is known as Rad. Some juniper can live 500 to even 1,000 years old. They've evolved scaly needles to conserve water and roots that can grow 200 feet deep. And as Navajo ethnobotanist Arnold Clifford says, it would take days to describe the cultural significances of juniper. Pinon is cha'ol. As biologist Annie Montez writes of pinon, it is what botanists call a foundational species because it defines the ecosystem. Without pinon, there would be no pinon juniper woodlands. This tree is the glue that holds its habitat together. It provides shelter for small mammals, a winter cache of nuts for pinon jays, water for surrounding plants, and a home for its fungal partners and other soil-dwelling critters. For millennium, it has provided heat, food, nutrition, and medicine to the people as long as they have been here. Another proposed development on the Old Pecos Trail and Arroyo Chamizo area has been getting a lot of attention. The 9.5 acre lot is adjacent to one of the last greenway habitats through town that has somehow preserved despite growth in Santa Fe in the last 50 years. Even though the arroyo looks dry most of the year, the underground water and moisture in the soil creates desert wetlands and microhabitats prime with biological activity. Plants from Rad and Cha'ol to the Wojibai, aka Chamisa, T'a, sage, Da'akoj denine, also known as saltbush, and Apache plume, as well as other grasses and shrubs like childeliese, snakeweed, thrive here. To the untrained eye, one might describe them as weeds, but to Native Americans and biologists, this is the key to animal life in the city, and it supports the sun and moon mountain ecosystems. Finally, a quick look to the Richards Avenue I-25 area. The last 30 years have seen exponential growth in the once empty outskirts of town. Sure, people say, well, there's tons of pinyon juniper forest. But a documentary I saw on PBS a few years ago said something like 60% of pinyon juniper forest had disappeared in the last 100 years. The biologist Montez further writes, just in the last few decades, over 1 million hectares of pinyon have died. That's roughly a 20th of the current pinyon range. Sure, these open spaces would benefit from being better managed. Lots of it is overgrown and the risk of massive fire looms large. Small burns or sustainably harvesting some of it to promote better forest health might be a good idea. A lot of the media portrays these developments as either pro-housing versus NIMBY, but what my concern is the ecological and cultural perspectives. Sure, it looks beautiful, but what happens if all the woodland is mowed down, paved over, and no longer wild places? Some states have environmental planning commissions that review every proposed development. Of course, people need homes to live in, but I sure think there are better ways other than removing entire ecosystems. Clearly, these projects are probably going to get the green light for now, but how as a community are we going to deal with the next and next waves of growth? Do we just let it become like Phoenix or Rio Rancho where miles of saltbush is decimated? Or eventually New York City? I hope we can use better ways of returning to the teachings that existed before colonialism entered the scene.
Way